Mic check. Okay, just about. Hello, check. 1, 2. Hello. Yeah. Well, Keith, you fucking idiot.
You always got to test the mics by insulting the other person.
You dumb fuck.
Yeah.
It's still hot. How was that still hot?
Let me check those levels. Have you got a tiny dick? Check. Check.
Kill yourself. Should we start with one of our new intros?
Yes, but what are you referring to?
We haven't figured it out yet exactly.
Exactly.
Well, should we just refer to one of the new show names?
Oh, what would this be? This is the classic
Chamber.
one. This is the chamber? Yeah, sure.
Should be like a...
Fuck it.
Why not? Fuck it.
Fuck it.
Little spoiler. Little tease.
Little tease
for
the boys out there. For the bluffers.
Yes.
It's catching on. Bluffers is catching on.
Welcome, Bluffers, which we're now going to drive into the ground. You're going to be tired of hearing it. After like half of an episode, you're going to be like, okay, I want out. I want out on the whole Bluffers thing.
Too much.
Yeah, it's not cool anymore. It was cool for 30 seconds.
One person said cool, and it's fucking over.
Welcome, Bluffers, to another episode of The Chamber, brought to you by the Bluff Council. I'm Ev Duran.
I'm Keith Macri. You're the Bluffers. We're here to party.
And that's called a professional intro. Look at us. What's the chamber, you may ask? Well, we'll get to it. Speaking of...
Not segue
anti-segue kings.
Anti-segue kings.
Well, now, what are the things that we want to be doing with sort of this new direction that we're taking, which we're rolling out over the next month or two, is more interactive things with you, our lovely viewership. And just a very small tease of that potential stuff. I have the best words.
I know words. I have the best words.
We did a little Instagram poll the other day to help determine what 2 episodes we're going to record today. And Keith gave the option between Wet Hot American Summer and the other guys. And in true Bluff Council fashion, it was split 50-50. So Keith chose Wet Hot American Summer, which is what we're here to discuss.
Take a trip back to 1981 with the special people who made summer camp unforgettable. Wet Hot American Summer.
And I could not be more excited. To talk about this film. I'm already overwhelmed. I've been thinking about it all morning. I am overwhelmed because there's too much to talk about. There's too many things I want to discuss about this, and I'm gonna have to try and find a way to keep it here because it's just, I feel like the possibilities are endless of things to discuss.
Yeah, I think they're very limited. No, I'm just kidding. Tell me why you were excited to talk about it, besides the fact that there's just so much to cover. I can take a couple stabs at it. You're a big comedy guy. You're a big ensemble, and this is quite the ensemble of talented comedians, many of whom I know specifically that you like. Mm-hmm. Are those 2 reasons, and is there anything beyond that?
No, that's it. I don't appreciate you knowing me so well. I'd appreciate you to back off. That's enough.
Yeah.
But yes, the place in comedy. Here we go. The place in comedy that all of these performers and this film should hold is very, very high in my humble comedy opinion. And because it is so robust in terms of talent, this is a real jumping off point for the careers of so many in comedy. So it's very exciting to talk about. I obviously want to talk about the performances. I want to talk about the director specifically. There's just and I want to talk about sex scenes. There's so much to discuss. Is there any high level stuff you want to touch on?
Well, yeah. I was kind of dreading this. I was rooting for the other guys.
Why are you? God, I hate you so much.
I didn't want to talk about Wet Hot American Summer because my only experience with the film, it's very vague memories of watching some of it. Maybe I don't think I'd ever watched it all the way through prior to watching it for this episode. And I don't remember really liking it. I didn't really feel strongly about it in any way, but I just remembered kind of being like, not for me, just based on what I had seen. And so then I thought, we're going to get on here, and the folks that are going to be watching this and listening to this are going to be the types of people that really love this movie. And so I was like, this is going to be a movie where everybody hates me. It's the inverse of the kind of episodes that I prefer, where everybody hates you.
That's 90% of our episodes is everyone hates me, for those who are just joining the program. This is, you get to feel like me, where you question clear greatness.
Yes, my turn to kind of drag a beloved cult favorite.
Yes.
But after watching it in its entirety last night, I actually got really excited to discuss it, because while I'm sure I don't like it as much as you do, there are a lot of really interesting things to talk about. Most of the things you already touched on. So, where do you want to start, Mr. Macri?
Oh, I want to start. Here's where I want to start. 1993.
Here we go. I'm surprised you're not starting with like the day of your birth. Here we go.
1983. 1983. It was a cool fall morning.
We're almost home. 1, 2.
Where were we? Yes, 1993. The precursor to this, I just need to mention it. I want to mention it at the top of the episode. 1993. A comedy troupe called The State began a TV show on MTV, and that show had such an immense impact on my life.
It's that time.
All you know is that time.
I'm Levon.
And I'm Barry, Sagittarius.
And it's time. It's time for $240
And $40
worth of pudding.
worth of pudding.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason why I mentioned that show is because a majority of those characters from that troupe created this movie, Wet Hot American Summer. So if you did not know, you should start with The State. If you like this movie and you like these actors, most of them are from a comedy troupe, The State, and you should go check them out immediately.
You know what I'm gonna say! No, we don't! I wanna dip my balls in it!
To me, it was sort of opened my eyes to what comedy could be. It was so I don't want to say anti-establishment, but anti-whatever else was going on at that time in terms of comedy in pop culture. And it was revelatory. It was raw. It wasn't produced very well. It wasn't shot particularly well, but it was crazy and zany and just amazing, all in one. So I can't say enough about what The State was for me. It was short-lived. It was 93, 95. But those characters, and I should say those actors and actress, today are mainstays within the field of comedy. So it just can't be understated, the humble beginnings of where they came from. So go check out The State.
Forget it, I'm out of here.
To me, the best part of this film is the comedic performances that are demonstrated here. I do love comedy groups. I think this is a group, again, that will work together for years to come after this, even to this day, all in different factions, because there were so many people who came, again, from The State. So this group working together and being so familiar with one another, I think, is such a great source of comedy, because comedy works in teams, I think, best. This is no better example. So these performances, top to bottom, are great comedic performances. The comedic performances in this film, I would put up with literally any other comedy film created. Everett disagrees, and I'd love to hear why.
Well, I think that's a bold statement. I think that's overselling it a little bit.
Thank you.
I think some of the performances in this film are like pretty funny.
That's it. That's what you're gonna give. Everyone's performance is spot on of what character they are playing.
That's incorrect, unfortunately.
Then who? Then who? Tell me who. Let's fight about it.
There's some inconsistent performances, but that's a part of a bigger conversation here of my criticism of this film. But I don't know if we want to dive right in.
I mean, that's what let's dive right in. Tell me why you hate this film and why you have no joy in your heart.
I don't hate this film.
Why don't you have joy in your heart?
After watching it last night, which was my first time start to finish, I realized by the end where I was like, I don't think I've ever seen this part. I liked it a lot more than I had thought I did or would have. There are bits and there are moments that hit really well and that are super duper funny. But I think the number one thing about this movie that keeps it from being like, in my personal opinion, you may disagree.
We do. We do disagree.
yeah, of like a really great film is its inconsistency, and I think that is across the board in terms of inconsistency of certain jokes or bits hitting and working. I'd say more miss than hit, and then I think a lot of the performances are very good because these people are all very funny. Most of them are very good, but there's some inconsistency in performances where I felt like Janine Garofalo and even Paul Rudd are like kind of like doing different things at certain times. Janine Garofalo especially, where it's like sometimes she's really committed and other times she's just like almost like she's like acting in like a really dry, like self-aware, like, oh yeah, great. Oh no, the asteroid's coming.
Is this gonna save my camp, Henry?
I don't know, but if it does, we'll all be heroes. In fact, I just got word that if we pull this off, I could be up for the Hopkins Prize for Physics.
The Hopkins, baby, what a dream.
But then later she'll be playing that character like she's really there. Like,
Beth, what's the matter? The phone, where's the fucking phone?
and it's like, so it's a little jarring, and that's to me a symptom of the larger film, which is basically just like there's no consistent tone at all. And I think it's unsure of whether or not, like, it never wants to go full spoof, and that's maybe my biggest problem. It's like it's either a little afraid to, or it's not quite committed enough to just be like, okay, we're Airplane, we are a spoof. And I think if it did that, it would be a lot better. It's sort of treading that line, and then that's hard for me to grab onto anything.
I understand what you're saying. I will never agree with you the entire episode because fuck you. But the only thing I was going to say negative about this film, hopefully later in the film, but here we are, is, and this is I think what you're touching on, is as a film, it's very it's almost just like a character study. Because it feels like a bunch of vignettes about these characters and it's the last day of camp, period. That's the whole story. It's just what happened that day. And then the film ends. There's no real, I don't want to say cohesive story, but I think that's kind of what you're, or is that a different thing than what you're saying?
But like I'm willing to overlook that because it's just like an over-the-top comedy, right? So like it's okay if like I'm not gonna like the story's not very strong. Like well, it's fine. It's just it's an excuse to have really funny moments. I have a good time. So that's all well and good. What I struggle with a little bit is I feel like for the first like 20 minutes or half hour, it's not like full crazy spoof. So it kind of lulls you into thinking the film is sort of one way where it's like, oh, it's kind of, it's a little extra goofy, maybe a little satirical here and there, but it never goes full spoof. And then all of a sudden, you get into the second act or the whatever, and then it's just fucking crazy. And then it's just like scene by scene by scene, it's completely over the top, and it just progressively gets weirder and weirder and weirder.
I mean, you clearly said smear mud on my ass. And I'll tell you something. If you want to smear mud on your ass, smear mud on your ass. Just be honest about it.
And that might work for some people, but just for me, it's hard because it sets you up to be like, this is, to use a phrase you use sometimes, like these are the rules of this film. Yeah. This is the tone, this is the energy, and now it's, okay. So there's funny bits within all the crazy shit, obviously, and it made me smile, and I had a good time watching it. But it's kind of whiplashy, where I'm like, oh, okay, so it's just, so this is that kind of movie. And I wish they would have just started like at Airplane level, over-the-top comedy, and just all of them committed to that level of like, we're gonna treat this very seriously. But this is all absurd. Right, then it would be, to me, like, this should be the funniest movie of all time. If you have this cast, and you have them willing to do anything, and you're going full, like, spoof, this should be, like, the funniest film of all time. And I don't think it is, because it's a little uneven.
Yeah, I don't want to agree, but I think it's a valid, I don't even want to say criticism, it's a valid point to discuss. It's worth discussing, and it's a discussion I feel like generally we've had over the course of all the comedies that we've discussed is balancing like the film itself versus creating comedy. The reason I think why I'm a lot more accepting and understanding of exactly what you're talking about is that is their style of comedy. Knowing this group and how they operate, it's exactly what they do.
Well, the one thing that I think we did really well was we were very tapped into kind of who we were. We were tapped into sort of being at the time the kind of youth market. I mean, with the comedy that we were making was reflective of exactly who we were.
Right.
It was very kind of aggressive and very kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, 90s, whatever that means.
Yes.
And we were really good at that. Like we knew how to be ourselves, which was great.
The scene where they go into town, which I find wildly funny, where it just gets completely out of control, is a mini example of this film and a mini example of really the style of comedy that these guys do in general. It starts fun and playful and over-the-top cheery and winds up in the darkest, craziest place that you could ever imagine. And I think that's a microcosm of the entire film. So I could understand people hating this film if they wanted to and be like, this is dumb, I don't get it.
Yeah,
I just love it, and I think it's great.
Yeah. Well, we're almost to get to the praise, so I promise for those of you who love this film. Again, I liked it. Like, I liked it more than I thought I would.
Yeah.
The point to me, I think the specific point, which is where things start to feel uneven, and it's probably where my viewings prior to this have kind of unraveled, I think is when the first kid dies in the lake. Because that's like...
That's the best part of the film.
You see my swimming buddy? If I can't find him, I'm telling Beth that you let him drown.
It's maybe the best idea, but I think it's not executed that well. And a part of that is because like everything before that feels like, okay, this is just kind of a silly comedy, but tonally. I don't mean like, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. It's one kind of comedy, and then the kid is like, hey man, I'm drowning. Hey man, I'm drowning. And then he dies, and you're like, oh, is that kid dead? Like, because I don't know that this movie is that kind of movie, then that happens, and it feels really far out of left field. And I don't want to say not earned, but like it's inconsistent. And then it's like, oh, then they push that kid out into the street, his buddy, his swim pal or whatever, which is a very funny bit. But because it's sort of like disjointed leading up to that, and like I can't fully commit to the laughter of that moment because it feels like a different kind of humor. I don't know. Maybe that doesn't make sense.
No. To me, it makes total sense. I completely understand what you're saying. It's valid, and I'm gonna guess you're not too familiar outside of this film for David Wain, Michael Showalter, Michael Ian Black. Like how familiar are you with them in general? How much are you familiar with the State?
Our dear friend Richie, big fan of the State. So he used to have me watch things here and there. So, I know them. Like I've seen whatever other stuff with them, and yeah, I don't know. I'm not like a huge fan.
But this is, and I think that's the point. I think you're either with them or against them in this kind of.
It's a little over dramatic. I'm certainly not against them.
No. Against. Okay, fine. I need to rephrase it for princess ears over here. The lack of cohesion and lack of sense, like, is their style of comedy.
No, I think it suffers for it.
And I can understand from a film standpoint, it's not a great film, and most comedies aren't. And I hate to say it because I love this film, and I love comedies. But generally speaking, they don't make great film-making decisions. Again, that's a vast generalization, but that's what you're talking about. And if the roles were reversed, I'd be saying the same thing. How I'm trying to defend it is saying that is their style. That is everything they've ever done. Have you ever seen They Came Together with Paul Rudd and Amy Poehler? It's the same shit.
Hey.
Hi there.
You look different.
Really? You think so?
You've got Groucho glasses on.
You noticed.
So you can like that or not, but they are consistent across all of their comedy, but I know that because I'm a fan of all of their comedy. So in your seat, I get what you're saying. You're just wrong because you're wrong, one, always, and two, it's if you're in, you're in. If you know them and you like them, you're going to like what they do because they're going to be doing that comedy always.
I love seeing movies and TV shows and trying to do in my own where you don't say I'm joking, and those who get it like it all the more because you're not have to be explained it. And then that's why, Wet Hot American Summer was a massive bomb. Most people hated it. And the people, the critics who saw it were like, what the fuck is this?
They didn't know what you were doing.
Exactly.
All right, I'll let it go. I'll let it go.
It cannot be for you. It cannot be for...
No, but their humor is fine. But it's the inconsistency within the film. It's not, to me, it's not a consistent film in terms of humor. It starts like it's going to be like this, like I said, I'm going to repeat myself. It starts like it's one thing, and it has jokes within that style. So you start to be like, okay, this is what this is. And then it just completely goes bonkers.
Right.
And you're like, okay, well, this is a different, so it's not like they're consistent across the board.
I think it is just like Anchorman in that sense, where people who cut their teeth in sketch comedy make films like this because they're just a bunch of different sketches with a rooftop over it and something to loosely drive it forward. And they're just funny bits. It's a collection of funny bits more than it is a movie. And so is Anchorman. It's just things that could potentially make you laugh that loosely, maybe not even loosely tie together. I think that's a result of sketch comedy. Roots in sketch comedy create these type of films because that's their strength. These guys, that's their strength, sketch comedy. So I think that, weird tonality shifts from a film standpoint, that's going to be your vulnerability because of that. But I understand that, I accept that going to the film because I know their roots and I know where they're coming from and I enjoy it. And I'm willing to be on board with it. As other smart comedy connoisseurs out there, unlike yourself. Thanks, gang, for joining us. Thanks, Bluffers. Kill them in the comments.
Bluffers.
Okay, any other criticisms you want to get out of the way that everyone stop watching? This is their favorite movie that you just shit all over?
Sure. I got plenty of criticism. No. Go talk about some good stuff, Keith. Remember this part? It was funny. Remember this part? It was funny.
I guess you can turn off the episode, you're right. Or just watch the movie. Just watch the movie again and imagine me and Ev talking about it. It's funny, right?
Considered hot, is that correct?
I suppose so.
Okay, so if one wanted to be hot and you make a good impression, what would you wear? You put on a clean pair of pants?
Molly Shannon's the best part. Molly Shannon is the funniest bit. I love it. I had a teacher like that who you just had to like tiptoe around, and then she just started sobbing about like marriage problems and her kids, and she never has any time to herself. And then you gotta like, we were like 14, like patting her on the back, like it'll be okay. Like I think that whole bit is hilarious, and I think it's hilarious she ends up with the kid at the end. Like it's very funny.
Killing kids, stashing kids to get them to not rat on you, marrying underage kids. Like you can't do any of this anymore, right?
I mean, maybe not at the moment. It'll come back. It's going to become fashionable again.
This is Bradley Cooper and Elizabeth Banks. This is their first film. First, like, major film, I'll say.
Yeah.
Are you impressed with that? Do you care about that? Does that mean anything to you that I say that?
Well, yeah, of course. I think it's really wild that it's Bradley Cooper's especially. I mean, this seems like the kind of movie that Elizabeth Banks would be in. But Bradley Cooper is just like, oh yeah, he's in this. Such a funny first role. And I'm sure it was quite the experience for him to get his big break and just have like this graphic gay sex scene. That's a scene you couldn't get away with anymore though now, because in the context of a film like this, because I think it's probably like indirectly being played for laughs because you're lampooning these films, these horny sex comedies of that time period.
Get McKinley laid!
Where there's like, you go to it hoping to see like some titties and a sex scene and stuff, and then you get the sex scene and it's like this, like for the time especially, like a really graphic like gay sex scene. And so I think that's really smart and funny. And
Yeah.
but I don't think you're supposed to play.
Well, again, that's not the joke. Is not two guys are having sex. It's juxtaposed between what the guys are saying underneath it.
Shithead, she wants to get burned.
That's that misogyny.
Yeah, McKinley's doing fine.
Yeah, he's doing great. He's very happy. Do you not like? I gotta learn the guy's name. I don't, but I love him. The cook, the guy's on Law and Order.
Oh yeah, Melsoni or something like that. Christopher Melsoni or Melisoni. I don't know. Yeah, I kind of bet he's maybe my least favorite part.
You said you were gonna go fondle your sweaters. No, I didn't. I said I'm gonna fondue with cheddar. I was thinking about making fondue with cheddar cheese for dinner tonight.
Come on.
I think that's a lot of that's just a lot of I don't know. I don't want to say low-hanging fruit, but we've seen the grizzled, disgruntled, traumatized Vietnam vet done so many other ways, and I think often much funnier. Even prior to this film, one example off the top of my head is The Big Lebowski. Walter Sobchak, John Goodman, is one of, I think, the best 10 characters of all time.
Do you see what happens, Larry, when you fuck a stranger in the ass?
I don't know. It's just its own bit. That one just wasn't for me as much. The H. John Benjamin is the talking can telling him to I could suck my own dick or whatever. That stuff's all really funny, but I don't know.
Look, Gene, I've never told anyone this before, but I can suck my own dick.
I also love the montage scene at the end with him and Michael Showalter. I just think that's too funny. I love that. I love those moments that are played straight, but proving the absurdity in what we don't see when we see those cliche moments. It's just do you really think these 80s montage scenes they've been so commonplace for so long, but they're stupid and they're absurd. So by playing it straight, but just taking it to 11, it points up the absurdity of it, and I laugh every time.
So I'm looking at my notes, and I don't know. This is probably nitpicky for a comedy,
Yeah.
but because the film starts one type of way, and then there's some jokes in the beginning that don't really land for me, when he's being awkward around the hot girl, when Showalter's being awkward.
Yeah, it's the whole movie.
She walks away, and he's like, "I want you inside of me." And she's like, "What? Oh, I don't know." That's not that funny. That's kind of
That's
it's kind of an obvious joke. There's a lot of swings that don't land. I know it's just one example of one line. But if you think that's really funny, I'm probably not gonna be on the same page.
It is funny. I'm gonna keep talking like we're on the same team here because fuck him. We think it's funny. I think you're forgetting that this movie came out 22 years ago. I think you're forgetting that this movie did not come out today, and I think you're judging that line on, it's been done, because a lot of people have borrowed bits from these guys. These have been an inspiration for almost 30 years now for comedy. There's a reason that literally every notable comedic actor working today has crossed paths with these guys.
Of course.
There's a reason for it. So I would, maybe not that joke specifically, but jokes in general that may seem played out. Kind of like Anchorman again too. There was some originality that came with it. Now they've just become so sort of common folk that it's oh, if you see it today, you're like, eh.
Milk was a bad choice.
But you don't know that this is kind of where it came from.
Sure, but I just mean in general, it's not even the content of the joke or what they say. I feel like there's a lot of examples in this movie where, I'd say, sorry, at best, 50% of the jokes land, and the 50 that do are really pretty funny, and the 50 that don't, aren't that funny, but you can tell they really think they're funny, and that almost makes the film less enjoyable, because oh, they're really, they thought that was funny. And it's the execution of the joke. And then I was really happy to read the reviews of this 38% Rotten Tomatoes film, and almost all the critical reviews are it's just really start and stop. It's really hit and miss. Some parts are really fun. And I was like, great. I feel so Vindicated.
Oh yeah, because everything on Rotten Tomatoes, the Bible of film reviews, and you agree personally with every decision Rotten Tomatoes has ever made. You fucking phony, you sellout hack, phony son of a bitch. Don't let him forget this moment, everyone.
It's not Rotten Tomatoes that I'm judging off of. I'm reading other, I'm reading reviews.
The New York Times, the New Yorker.
yeah. Richard Brody was not too fond of this film. He found it amateurish.
Good. We don't need you.
Honest question. Why do you think this film failed initially?
Because people aren't ready for it. Like most great comedies, they don't do well out of the gate. Most. There are some, Eddie Murphy films that take off because he's already a rock star. It's a proven entity. But for people like this underground nature, the masses aren't ready for it. The state's only on for 2 years. It's not meant for a wide audience. It's not meant for mass people to love it and fall in love with it and be, this is the greatest, funniest thing in the ever. It's a niche thing. But the fact that it has such a strong niche cult following, as you said earlier, means it's doing something right. It's got 2 sequels, behind it, 20 years later or whatever, 15 years later, whatever it is. They're doing something right, but it's not meant to be mass quantity.
You know what they did right?
What's that?
They casted right.
Yeah, but I think
right.
If everyone in that cast knows how to be funny and has great comedic talent and comedic presence, they're doing something right. Like, they know what they're doing. It's just not meant for everybody. And that's okay. You can be wrong.
Of course.
All of you who disagree can be wrong.
I mean, I get all that. I think, I'm trying to think of an example of a comedy film that's great, but it's just not for everybody.
I think most are. Most great comedy films, I think, are not. Like, do you think Caddyshack's meant for everybody?
No, definitely
I think
not.
Caddyshack and this film actually have a lot in common in terms of, it's a lot of bits just kind of put together. There's not a huge ton of structure to that film. And I think even in the production, they use that groundhog as like the only thing that tied the fucking film together. Like, and where do they come from? Saturday Night Live, sketch comedy. It's just, I think it all speaks to a type of film that gets made by those creative comedic minds that come from sketch. I think there's a lot to that.
Totally. I'm all for those kinds of comedies. I just want the individual sketches to be funny. That's all.
You don't like it. Hey, you don't like it. You don't like it. That's fine. You're wrong, but that's fine.
I like it.
You can't say I don't like it, but it's not. I like it, but it's not funny. You literally cannot exist.
That's not true at all. You can like most of it, and so you like the film, but you don't have to. Like, it's not saying that I like it doesn't mean I think it's fucking perfect. You know what I mean? Like, I like it.
You're saying you like it to cover your ass when the comments come pouring in that this is the greatest comedy of all time. I see them through them, guys. I see through them. It's fine.
The Molly Shannon scenes, I love. That's high-level comedy.
What else do you like
stuff.
besides Molly Shannon? Because Molly Shannon, I think, is great in most of the comedic stuff she does. I do love Molly Shannon and her general bit that she does. But anything else that sticks out? Let's say some positive things, please. Give me one positive fucking thing other than Molly Shannon.
I always like Ken Marino. I don't care what Ken Marino's in. I always think Ken Marino's funny.
Thank you.
I think his bit at the beginning is especially funny, where he's just like,
"Oh, she definitely wants to fuck me. I mean, why else would she be talking to you?"
Oh, I thought it was funny towards the end. Almost everything else is negative I wrote, but I thought it was really funny. I liked most of what was happening in the talent show at the end. I thought that bit with Showalter playing that guy that shows up, Alan Shepard or whatever, doing like all those old like fucking vaudeville style jokes, like I'm so old that I had a velociraptor
everybody's
steak or whatever.
losing it, like
yeah, and everybody's dying.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of individual moments that made me laugh. I like Amy Poehler's commitment to her character. That's what I guess I wanted to, is like everybody to be at that level of even the characters that are committed aren't necessarily playing it straight. You know what I mean? And so there's a few people that are playing it really, really straight. Like Molly Shannon is playing this like it's a real character in a real film. It's a real person.
Yeah.
Whereas Paul Rudd committed to the bit, but it's like doing like he's not playing it like a real guy.
Correct.
And so that also I think adds to my like discombobulation a little bit, where it's like, oh, some people are like Robert Stack in Airplane, like this is a fucking disaster and we need to save the day. That's Molly Shannon. But then there's other people that are like, I'm in a comedy movie, so I'm gonna do like lots of stuff, you know, and that throws me off. So
it is valid. I want to respect the intelligence, especially when we have intelligent conversations about comedy in general. I love, and it's an intelligent observation to be made. I'm not going to continue to quote myself over and over again, but you're wrong.
You're an idiot.
You're an
but
idiot.
you might have a point.
You've never pleased a woman. Now, everything needs to be looked at in a vacuum in this kind of film, because none of it makes sense together. It barely makes sense by itself. And that's the nature of these films. It's, again, the charm of these films, in my opinion. It's a magic 8-ball of jokes. You know, it's just like, oh, joke. Another joke. Hilarious.
Yeah, sure. Do you think it would be better if all the actors were playing their parts as if they were real people?
It would be a better film, absolutely.
Like funnier.
I don't know if it would be funnier. Because, as I said before, I think that's their bread and butter. Absurdity, non-logical absurdity, is their bread and butter. It's what they do best. It's what they do. So I can't say it would be better comedically. I would say it would make a much better film. And that was sort of my only criticism that I was going to say before we just went down this road of only criticisms. It's not a great film. It's not a great collective film.
Well, sure.
You know, it has no point. It literally has no point. It just happens. And it's funny.
Yeah, and again, I think that's fine from like a story standpoint, but I do think that performance thing is interesting to think about, because I'm comparing this film fairly or unfairly to just Airplane all the time in my head.
Yeah.
Because to me, Airplane is kind of like the gold standard of like these really over-the-top kind of spoofy movies, which, like I said, I don't think this one really quite commits to that entirely until halfway through. But in Airplane, even most of the goofy characters, you know, are playing it straight. And I think that's what makes that kind of absurdist, illogical comedy like hit so much harder and be even funnier. And I kind of like I'm drawing blank on her name, the flight attendant Julie Haggerty.
Julie Haggerty.
Like even her, she's playing a very funny character.
Yeah.
That's not entirely realistic maybe, but she's playing it like it is. And I just wish everyone in this movie was doing that, and then I think it'd be like...
I think most...
You know, Bradley Cooper's doing that, Amy Poehler's doing that.
Yeah, Michael Ian Black is doing that, David Hyde Pierce is doing that. I think Ginny Garofalo, for the most part, is doing that, except for the end. It kind of gets a little crazy at the end.
I think she's kind of
where she goes a little bit... I said for the most part, she is doing it, I think, for the most part. Amy Poehler is doing it. Elizabeth Banks is doing it for, you know... She's got that barbecue all over her face.
But there's a couple major ones. Well, especially looking back now, because it's like maybe, you know, Paul Rudd's one of the most famous people in that, so you're really paying attention to Paul Rudd.
Right, Paul Rudd is the biggest example that you have, where he is in a different film, kind of.
Yeah.
But it's funny. I still think his attitude
Maybe that's just my main problem with the film, is I don't think Paul Rudd's that funny.
Yeah.
So maybe that's like why... Like, that casts a long shadow for me, because, of course, you always love Paul Rudd.
Yeah, Paul Rudd is great in everything. You're right. He probably is doing too much. If he dialed it back to more realistic, that might fix a lot of what you're saying. I think it'd still be just as funny. Yeah, of course.
I think it'd still be just as funny.
Yes. Yeah. The last thing I just want to mention is David Wain. I love David Wain. I wish I could have his career. I think we've had a conversation before about whose career would you want in one of the other episodes, which I think is a fascinating conversation to have with people in general. And at some point, I'll let you talk. But for me, for me, David Wain is a career that I would, it's just us guys. It's just us bluffers just hanging out. David Wain is a career that I would love to have. He's done some big things. And he does a lot of these underground things. He's done a lot of TV. He's got Emmy wins. He's done Children's Hospital. He's Wanderlust. Role Models is one of my favorite films.
Venti is large.
No, Venti is 20.
Danny. Yeah. Large is large. In fact, tall is large, and grande is Spanish for large. Venti's the only one that doesn't mean large. It's also the only one that's Italian. Congratulations, you're stupid in 3 languages.
I think he's done it all within comedy. From a writing, directing, and performing standpoint, he's less of a performer. But that's really the sweet spot that I've always hoped, the dream of all dreams. I'm David Wain, and I guess that's saying a lot about me as a person. that's cool.
That's cool.
Aspired.
You know, I went to a concert, a very intimate concert with David Wain once.
What do you mean? Like friends? What do you mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I saw him. No, but it was like a small little performance. Monique is friends with a couple people in Los Angeles named Sarah and Paul Cartwright. Shout out. And Paul Cartwright is a very accomplished musician. Violinist and other things, lots of and a lot of he plays with a lot of big name people in their bands, and we went to see one of his performances, and David Wain was there sitting just down the row, and as was Thomas Lennon. So it was a very exciting evening where I was just like,
oh my lord, yeah. Oh man, did you guys talk about me? Did you?
Yeah. I gave them a script. They said this is the best script we've ever read.
Yep.
Who's this guy, Keith? We've heard nothing about. You know how conversations go.
yeah. We don't know him, but boy, do we hate him.
Yeah. I've never heard of him, but boy, I've heard awful things.
He's man. I love. He seems, again, what do I know from the outside? But he seems as someone who has really carved out his own path and done the things that he really wanted to do.
I sleep well knowing that I've stuck to my voice, stuck to what I think is funny, what I care about, what means something to me comedically. And, comedy is I take it seriously.
He just does a bunch of things and has his hand in so many different aspects of comedy. And I love it, and I'm jealous that he gets to do that. So.
Totally.
Please reach out, David. I'll do anything.
Yeah, no.
Literally.
I'll do anything, man. Just point at something in the room.
Just point at something in the room and I'll fuck it for you. Come on, just tell me what you want me to fuck.
And another thing that should be said, I know people are mad at me because I'm insulting this film, so to speak, but it's his first film, right? Like it's his first feature film.
Yeah.
Like so you're taking big swings. You're figuring it out. There's a lot of great debut films, but there's not many that can, there's not as many that can be said to have had this impact over a long period of time, where it's like you make your first film, it's this huge flop. How stressful and horrible must that be? You think it's so funny, but then 20 years later, Netflix comes calling and it's like, yo, we want to order 2 more series of these or whatever. Like, that's fucking awesome. It's got to feel so good.
Any last closing thoughts about all the people you've disappointed today?
I want to apologize to everybody. I know you're all mad. I know they've turned it off. Anybody who was mad turned it off as we argued for 15 minutes about the first half hour versus the rest of this movie.
Yeah.
But I just want to say I like that whenever Keith and I have disagreements about films, that I always end up wearing him down and he has to concede that I've made many good points. And that's maybe my favorite part about these conversations, Keith.
Listen, I just want fucking.
Anybody else we didn't talk about?
All right, that's it. I guess we did it. Thanks, everybody. Tune in next week.
Okay. You have to edit this, so you're going to have to find an ending out of this.
There is not. There is no ending. There's not.
Cut to black.
Probably.